voice of our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says peace of mind must be acquired not through favorable circumstances but through inner transformation. With always our love and blessings, says our Divine Mother. Sri Aurobindo's Savitri, Book 1, The Book of Beginnings, Canto 4, The Secret Knowledge, page 62. Only the immortals on their deathless heights, dwelling beyond the walls of time and space, masters of living, free from the bonds of thought, who are overseers of fate and chance and will, and experts of the theorem of world need, can see the idea, the might that change time's course, command with light from undiscovered worlds. Here, while the world toils on with its deep blind heart, the galloping hoofs of the unforeseen event, bearing the superhuman rider near and impassive to earth's dim and stout cry, return to the silence of the hills of God. As lightning leaps, as thunder sweeps, they pass and leave their mark on the trampled breast of life. Above the world creators stand. In the phenomenon see its mystic source. These heed not the deceiving outward play, they turn not to the moment's busy tramp, but listen with the still patience of the unborn for the slow footsteps of far destiny, approaching through huge distances of time, unmarked by the eye that sees effect and cause, unheard mid the clamor of the human plain. Attentive to an unseen truth, they seize a sound as of invisible augur wings, voices of an unplumbed significance, mutterings that brood in the core of matter's sleep. In the heart's profound audition, they can catch the murmurs lost by life's uncaring ear, a prophet's speech in thought's omniscient trance. Words of our Lord Sri Aurobindo, taken from the collective works of our Lord Sri Aurobindo, SABCL, Volume 22, page 348. Topic: the outer being and the inner being. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says there is an inner as well as an outer consciousness, all through our being upon all its levels. The ordinary man is aware only of his surface self and quite unaware of all that is conceived by the surface. And yet, what is on the surface, what we know or think, we know of ourselves and even believe that that is all we are, is only a small part of our being, and by far the larger part of us is below the surface. Or, more accurately, it is behind the frontal consciousness, behind the veil, occult, and known only by an occult knowledge. Modern psychology and psychic science, says our Lord, have begun to perceive this truth just a little. Materialistic psychology calls this hidden part the inconscient, although practically admitted that it is far greater, more powerful, and profound than the surface conscious self, very much as the Upanishads call the superconscient in us the sleep self, although this sleep self is said to be an infinitely greater intelligence, omniscient, omnipotent, prajna, the Ishvaram. Psychic science calls this hidden consciousness the subliminal self, and here too it is seen that this subliminal self has more powers, more knowledge, a freer field of moment than the smaller self that is on the surface. But the truth is that all this that is behind, this sea of which our waking consciousness is only a wave or series of waves, cannot be described by any one term, for it is very complex. Part of it is subconscient, lower than our waking consciousness. Part of it is on a level with it, but behind and much larger than it. Part is above and superconscient to us. What we call our mind, says our Lord, is only an outer mind, a surface mental action, instrumental for the partial expression of a larger mind behind, of which we are not ordinarily aware and can only know by going inside ourselves. So, too, what we know of the vital is of us is only the outer vital, a surface activity partially expressing a larger secret vital which can only know by going within. Equally, what we call our physical being is only a visible projection of a greater and subtler invisible physical consciousness, which is much more complex, much more aware, much wider in its receptiveness, much more open and plastic and freeing. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, if you understand and experience this truth, then only you will be able to realize what is meant by the inner mental, inner vital, inner physical consciousness. But it must be noted that this term inner is used in two different senses. Sometimes it denotes the consciousness behind the veil of the outer being, the mental, vital, or physical within, which is in direct touch with the universal mind, the universal life forces, the universal physical forces. Sometimes, on the other hand, we mean an inmost mental, vital, physical, more specifically called the true mind, the true vital, the true physical consciousness, which is nearer to the soul and can most easily and directly respond to the divine light and power. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, there is no real yoga possible, still less any integral yoga, if we do not go back from the outer self and become aware of all this inner being and inner nature. For then alone can we break the limitations of the ignorant external self, which receives consciously only the outer touches and knows things indirectly through the outer mind and senses, and become directly aware of the universal consciousness and the universal forces that play through us and around us. And then only, too, can we hope to be directly aware of the divine in us and directly in touch with the divine light and the divine force. Otherwise, we can feel the divine only through external signs and external results, and that is a difficult and uncertain way, and very occasional and inconstant, and it leads only to belief and not to knowledge, not to the direct consciousness and awareness of the constant presence. And Lord Sri Aurobindo says the inner consciousness means the inner mind, vital and physical, and behind them the psychic, which is their inmost being. But the inner mind is not the higher mind. It is more in touch with the universal forces and more open to the higher consciousness and capable of an immensely deeper and larger range of action than the outer or surface mind, but it is of the same essential nature. The higher consciousness is that above the ordinary mind and different from it in its workings. It ranges from higher mind through illumined mind, intuitive mind, and overmind up to the borderline of the supramental. And Lord Sri Aurobindo says, you take the outer waking consciousness as if it were the real person or being and conclude that it is not this but something else that has the realization or abides in the realization, then no one has it. For there is no one here except the waking consciousness. That is the very error by which the ignorance lasts and cannot be got rid of. The very first step in getting out of the ignorance is to accept the fact that this outer consciousness is not one's soul, not one's self, not the real person, but only a temporary formation on the surface for the purpose of the surface plane. The soul, the person is within, not on the surface. The outer personality is a person only in the first sense of the Latin word persona, which meant originally a mask, says our Lord Sri Aurobindo.
सत्येन पन्था विगतो देवयानः येनाक्रमन्ते ऋषयो यप्तकामा यत्र तं सत्यस्य परमं निधानम् ॐ माया हि वरदे देवी
Next subtopic, our innermost being, the psychic being, a nucleus pregnant with divine possibilities. These words are taken from the collective works of our Lord Sri Aurobindo, SABCL Volume 22, page 269. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says the inner being, inner mind, vital, inner or subtle physical, knows much that is unknown to the outer mind, vital, physical, for it is in a more direct contact with the secret forces of nature. The psychic is the inmost being of all, a perception of truth which is inherent in the deepest substance of the consciousness, a sense of good, true, beautiful, the divine is its privilege. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, the psychic part of us is something that comes direct from the divine and is in touch with the divine. In its origin, it is the nucleus, pregnant with divine possibilities, that supports this lower triple manifestation of mind, life, and body. There is this divine element in all living beings, but it stands hidden behind the ordinary consciousness, is not at first developed, and even when developed, is not always or often in the front. It expresses itself so far as the imperfection of the instruments allows by their means under their limitations. It grows in the consciousness by Godward experience, gaining strength every time there is a higher moment in us, and finally by the accumulation of these deeper and higher moments, there is developed a psychic individuality, that which we actually call the psychic being. It is always this psychic being, says our Lord, that is the real, though often the secret cause of man's turning to the spiritual life, and this greatest help in it. It is therefore that which we have to bring from behind to the front in the yoga. The psychic is the soul or the spark of the divine fire supporting the individual evolution on the earth, and the psychic being is the soul consciousness developing itself, or rather its manifestation, from life to life with the mind, vital, and body as its instruments until all is ready for the union with the divine.